Welcome to this Pádel. Today we have one of the most wanted people right now in Miami, who is Juan Pablo Leria. He's originally from Spain, also some Chilean, let's say, heritage, and he's now in Miami. He's moved here recently, and they are already making an impact. He's the CEO and co-founder of Pádel. So welcome, Juan Pablo, and thanks for coming.
No, thank you, Rosa. I think it's great you're promoting the world of paddle here in the U.S.
Working on it.
We need a lot of help to do so, and I'm very thankful to be here with you.
We really appreciate it.
Thank you.
So for someone that doesn't know who you are, who is Juan Pablo Leria?
Well, do you have 30 minutes? No. Basically, I was born in Barcelona, so I'm originally from Spain, but I mostly lived in Marbella, which is in southern Spain, for most of my life.
Pádel origins are from there, right?
Yeah. Well, basically, now that you touch the point, the first paddle court was obviously built in Mexico, in Corcuera's private home, but the first public courts were built in Marbella Club Hotel. So I have a long connection with paddle in that sense. I wasn't a big paddle player when I was living in Marbella because I was mostly dedicated to golf and other sports at school. But slowly I became a paddle player, especially with the paddle boom in the latest years. My parents are from Chile, so I have a very tight bonds with that country. But mostly I lived in Marbella, and I think Marbella has a very similar lifestyle to Miami in sorts. It's multicultural, it's very outdoors, very sportsy, and very lifestyle oriented. Yeah. And I think part of the baggage maybe of living in Marbella is part of who I am today. And so it's in a sense that I'm very inclined to lifestyle and hospitality. I've lived for a little bit over 10 years in Chile also, where I developed two clubs that are very well known. They're called Utopia. One of the clubs was named the best wellness club in the world in 2001 by Technogym.
Okay.
It's a 65 square feet club, wellness club, with 4 hectares in the middle of Santiago de Chile in Vitacura. Yeah. And that's basically who I am. I have a mixed bag of experiences like you do, because I read your background. I love sports, I love design, and I love the business component. And when you find projects like Pádel or Utopia, they become passion projects at the end of the day, And I think when you work in a passion project, you're not looking at the time, you're not looking at your timetable, you're just pouring all your passion into this project.
Yeah, mostly every time I go to Pádel, we are around there, so it's more.
Yeah, because we love what we're doing with our partners. I have Nali Grinda as a partner. He's a chief paddle officer. I have part of my family, my brother-in-law and my sister, who are partners with me in this project. And I have an amazing team. We have a lot of professional people for different backgrounds in finance, in growth, in real estate. And I think that that you can see that there's a professional approach of what we're trying to do with Pádel, or at least I hope so.
No, it's less like the mom and pop store that we've been seeing. Like now it's more professional, well branded. And
I wanted to talk with you a little bit. I know we talked about about what the interview could be about, and I think obviously there's a lot to do in the paddle, So to close your question, I'm Spanish. I've been in contact, with paddle sport for a long time, for decades. One of my uncles was actually national champion in Spain from the very beginning, Arturo Jimenez and Carlos Jimenez. So I've always been in contact with the sport, but not this intensely and directly as I am today,
Of course.
And I think my background in real estate, because my family does a lot of real estate, and my background in hospitality, I'm hoping they're gonna show up a little bit in what we're trying to do with Pádel moving forward.
Okay, let's see. You just started. So going back to your background, you've dedicated your life to sports.
Yeah.
And you said you were also into golf.
Yeah.
Right. So how was going from Marbella to Chile to create Utopia, and what sports you had there?
Yeah, well, basically, I think when you see, for example, most of the members in the Pádel team, most of us have diverse backgrounds. Nale, for example, was a tennis player and he finished being a paddle player. Or myself, I was a golf player. Then I went through Ironman. I love tennis and I'm playing a lot of paddle today, which I'm trying to improve day to day. And I think basically, when I was finding my way, finding my purpose, I was looking at maybe at a corporate career, and when I finished, studying economics and so on. But basically, I knew that wasn't my fit. I knew I wanted to find something. I love design. I studied a couple of years architecture also, so I'm very design inclined, and I think that's super important for hospitality concepts. And I think when you see these kind of projects, it's a perfect excuse or opportunity to kind of bring all these experiences together, no? And see what comes out of all this baggage, you know? And that's a little bit of what we're trying to do with Pádel X, no? You just mentioned that maybe, Pádel historically has been a little bit of a moms and pops business. Where a couple of friends bring a little bit of capital or equity, they build their own club. And this is how Pádel got started and how it evolved through time, no? But I think with our partners in Pádel X, when we were facing the challenge of coming to the US to scale a growth model like Pádel and Pádel X, we decided we wanted to take a super professional approach. We saw opportunities in technology. We saw opportunities in branding. We saw opportunities in service, of bringing actual hospitality and real hospitality to the mix, you know? And we're hoping that the players who are coming through Pádel X who are experiencing our concept for the first time, I hope they're seeing the effort we've put behind the brand, you know?
Yeah, what do you think Pádel is now? Why this momentum right now?
Well, I think Pádel has probably had like two births. It had a very strong birth at the very beginning of the game in the 1980s. Yeah, the first courts were in 1970s and so on, but the real explosion was in the 80s. There was a small downturn after that, and the big second explosion has been after COVID. No? Yeah. And I think COVID has been a big pusher for this game for many, many reasons. The main reason is people, obviously, they wanted to socialize. They wanted to be outdoors. They wanted to learn a game that was easy to learn. Yeah. And obviously, Pádel has all those components, no? I also think from the business perspective, Pádel is also very attractive. No? Obviously, it's a smaller surface or space, but where 4 players are playing instead of 2, like tennis. And obviously, that reflects in the business model at the end of the day. No? So I think it's a very attractive business model also for real estate at the end of the day. No?
Yeah, because you have several things, but one is the learning curve. Like in tennis, it can take you a month just to start, just to serve. So, and you spend a lot of time like putting all the balls together. Here, the ball comes to you. The space like is smaller, but also is super engaging, right? And it's for people. So, real estate wise, you can do more money with less space, I guess. But what can you do also on top of that, right? Like because Pádel has, I feel like it's the new golf somehow, like for corporate events, but I think golf is like the entry barrier is higher. Like to start to have fun with Pádel, you can have someone that is not that good with someone that is good, and everybody has fun.
Yeah, you're touching on all the main points. Obviously, there's a lot of intersection, no, regarding Pádel. It's social, like you said. It's easy to learn. It's very engaging. And for example, when I see the players, even myself, or all the tennis community converting to Pádel, which is a huge driver for this sport, no, you see that many people with different sports backgrounds are finding a new challenge in Pádel. So when you see that Pádel players are on average 40, 42 years old, and the passion with they're engaging into the game is because many they're coming from other sports and they find a new challenge when they're 40, and they get really engaged because of that, because they start playing and they start learning and advancing very quickly, you know, and that's what becomes addictive for them.
Yeah, it's totally like that. Like when you start feeling you can do it and you improve a little bit and you have fun with your friends, I think this social layer is very important too. Like super very easily important. You have your own group.
And what I think about that, Rosa, is at the end of the day, everything we're talking about converts into a lifestyle.
Yeah.
Is people find a new niche, a new space in their personal life where they say, I can find Pádel friends there. I have a new challenge for myself. I have my own time there. Like I find a new space in my life that's super fun for me, you know?
Yeah, and healthy on top of that.
And it's a healthy lifestyle. So I think Pádel, like you were saying before, is a new golf and it's a new lifestyle.
Yeah, totally. You've opened, I think, like 6 weeks ago or something, and it's full all the time. So what's gonna someone that comes to Miami and wants to play Pádel in Pádel X, what are they going to find? What's Pádel X right now?
Well, Pádel X, yes, obviously we've been open since the 1st of April. I think I would say in general terms, it exceeded a little bit our expectations. Good. In terms of revenue, which is important, but most important in terms of feedback. When we're hearing the feedback of people, they're telling us how good the vibe is, the hospitality, the design, the quality of those courts, especially also the hospitality. They feel the service, you know, and I think that there's also a missing component in paddle up to this date, you know. When I see paddle in Europe, obviously there's a lot of competition there, a lot of offer, but there's not a real innovation there, you know, and we brought different elements together that I think together make a new concept. No? We have Lacoste, as you know, is an exclusive apparel partner for us. We're the first paddle club in the world with Lacoste as a sponsor and a partner. We have a pioneering recycling program where we're recycling all the plastic bottles and tennis balls into our own merchandise for Pádel X. So I think
you
that's
have like the t-shirts and all that.
Yeah, it actually tells you how many bottles you're using for that, and I think that's super important in story doing instead of storytelling. So saying really what's the values behind Pádel X, because there's a lot of values to be rescued from sports. No? Sports have a lot of values. It's not only a business driven, but it's also you know, value driven. You know what was sports doing for the community, people coming in, having a healthy lifestyle. No. So I think all these things coming together in the Pádel X offer an experience that been you know, like a breath of fresh air for the community, and the feedback from the clients has been impressive. I'm super happy with that. The important thing also is that Pádel X is not stopping here.
Okay.
Obviously, this is our first opening, and
but here you have 10 courts, which is a big number, right?
It's a sizable size of club, and I think. Obviously, for Miami, there's still a lot of growth opportunity. I mean, Miami is a big city. I think Miami is going to be the capital, you know, of paddle in the U.S. for the foreseeable future. But we see a lot of opportunities also outside of Miami. I think one of the things that probably differentiate Pádel X from probably other brands today in the market is that we're born, you know, with a mindset of growth. We want to grow from day one. Okay, so today, obviously, we're very present with our Miami opening, but we also assigned Boca Raton and Palm Beach locations, which we're working on today as we speak. Boca Raton, we should be opening by the end of this year, and Palm Beach, we should be opening by beginning of next year.
Very good.
We're always looking for new locations, and basically, even though our focus today is in Florida, we want to grow along, you know, I-95 North, basically all the way up to Tampa and Orlando with this concept. We're looking for, you know, for growth outside, also in other states. And when we do so, we're probably going to look for local partners there. Good. You know, I think.
Are they open, like indoors, outdoors?
I think everybody in general, all the paddle operators, all the paddle groups that are entering the market, I would say we all have the vision and the desire to have indoor courts. But I think the match with the real estate today is very difficult for that. Because, I mean, today we're not the only visionaries that are seeing that the US is a very attractive market. Why is it an attractive market? Because of the depth of the market. You have 300 million population here. There's obviously a lack of paddle courts in the country. When you only see the Latin population and the European population in the US that already know the game. By any means, the US needs in the order of 10,000 courts today. And we're seeing there's only 300 courts built today in the US. Wow. So we're basically seeing that the industry needs to grow 40x, 50x fold for the next years. And that sounds beautiful, and that's why many groups are interested in coming to the US. But that said, there's a lot of challenges ahead. And I'm saying that these challenges is because I have to live them myself and trying to open the clubs and sign the locations we have today, you know. I think I've seen a lot of decks from many groups that want to enter the market. They want to come into the market aggressively. But I think many of them, like we did, very humbly, they're going to realize all the barriers that are here. No? What is the first barrier I see, Rosa, is that you need 360 skills. You need to have many skills to make the dream become a reality. And what do I mean by 360 skills? You need to be able to raise equity. You need to be able to secure locations with the right demographics and the right lease structure and the right guarantees, which usually are very high. You need to be able to get through permitting. The permitting, at least in Florida, is quite a pain point or a nightmare, I would say, if you let me.
It is.
You have to construct, you know, and build in time and money. And then finally, when you've done all of that, you need to be able to open your doors and deliver on your promise, you know, and operate.
Yeah, and find the right people to operate
and
too,
find the
and
right
make it
people
like
to operate. So it's really a 360 demand of skill sets that is pretty demanding. I think that as the industry matures, you're going to have third parties. You're going to be able to outsource some of these of these skill sets, you know. But today, the reality is you have to do everything yourself. You know? In this landscape, I would say that the real estate is the biggest hurdle by far. I think the biggest, you know, hurdle we all going to have to go through as paddle operators is going to be real estate. For many reasons, you know, one being this, you're competing against many other type of industries, like, you know, last mile, you know, logistics. You're competing against real estate. You're competing against mixed use, you know. Yeah. So that's very difficult. Obviously, there's a lot of capital required when you want to look in a good location. You need the right guarantees and the right lease, and that's very demanding economically. And I think also one of the things that's going to happen that I see as an opportunity, obviously there's challenges,
of course,
but there's always the other side of the coin, and I also see a lot of opportunity. Why? Because I believe as many more clubs open in the US, real estate is going to start, you know, hearing about this industry, understanding that paddle can be a real business, an attractive business, because it's driving a healthy lifestyle, it's driving a pretty attractive traffic every day through a club. And I think as this happens, landlords and developers are going to open up to the paddle industry. And for me, that's just a matter of time.
Yeah, because you're pitching, you're learning, like you're somehow evangelizing for those that are coming too. But let's say if they have a space that is empty in an area that is still not that good, it's a good way to start opening business, creating traffic, and then they can build a community around that.
Totally. And this you're commenting, Rosa, community is super important because we all want to grow the paddle community here in the US and the paddle ecosystem. The paddle ecosystem, I mean apparel, merchandise, building courts, etc., needs a larger paddle community. But we won't have a paddle community unless we have more clubs. So in the chicken or egg dilemma, if you allow me, I would say that obviously there's a huge responsibility on club developers to get the industry running, you know. And those are probably the ones who are going to face the biggest hurdles of developing the paddle community in the US. You know?
Yeah, because you can start doing like clubs, competitions, different leagues, many more things that we've seen in Spain already. That here with this scarcity, of course, was super difficult.
But it's moving fast.
It's good.
It's moving fast. For example, I think I've scorched all of Florida looking for locations. So I've had a lot of different experiences and hitting a lot of walls. And what I see is, for example, that when I started mid-2022, before we signed the downtown location, when I started meeting with developers or landlords, they didn't have a clue what paddle was. And for example, now, 2 years later, with the new clubs that are opening, the new paddle awareness through the paddle leagues, through the PPL, and so on, you start seeing that there's more awareness. That people are seeing this an attractive lifestyle. There's spending power there, and there's a real passion in this community, you know. And I think as developers, for example, with mixed uses, if I have a mixed use and I have office and have residences, paddle can be a super good complement for them, you know. So for me, I think real estate is the biggest challenge today for the industry and for the clubs, and the clubs are going to lead the paddle community and the paddle ecosystem. But on the other hand, I think there's also a huge opportunity because I think once real estate picks up on the paddle industry, it's going to spread like fire. That's why
I think we're almost there.
Something
that is important to me, and that's why both Spaniards they speak in English, is like the spy joke, like what the hell are we doing speaking English? It's because we know very well that we need to do an effort to create content and to spread the word into the English-speaking market. And to me, it's very important that instead of doing maybe 3 clubs in Miami, that the market could acquire, there's that ambition, there's that hunger. You're going to West Palm or going to Boca Raton, or Palm Beach. There, I think the kind of work you have to do at the beginning is different from here because there are not that many Spaniards, Argentinians, Latinos that already know about the sport, but it's more maybe, I've been recently to New York, I found that the people that are starting to do paddle, they come from squash. Like, makes a lot of sense. and they've been doing that in the clubs, so they know like the rebound, something.
And tennis also.
Tennis a lot.
There's a huge conversion from racket sports to paddle, you know. And I think that's a very interesting question that we always make ourselves in Pádel X with our team and with our partners. You know, it's and for me the reasonable answer I found, we have to you understand that paddle today is a white space in the U.S. So nobody has all the answers today. We're all trying to apply as much intelligence to answering these questions as possible. For example, in Pádel X, we have developed an underwriting model for real estate, which I've developed with real estate experts, where I feed all the demographics, I feed all the inputs from a paddle model, and we have a business model construction. So every time I study a new location, I can get all these outputs. We're trying to find the answers in this white space that paddle is today in the US, and seeing how the right way to grow is, you know. And answering your question, for example, because it's a question I make myself many times, is like, for example, we're developing an indoor club in Boca Raton, in a very good location next to Florida Atlantic University, in a technological park with 30-foot ceilings, very good location.
Very important point.
Yeah. And we ask ourselves our questions, is how many courts can Boca Raton support? Yeah. I think today probably nobody knows the answer. Okay. Now, what I think, and I truly believe in, is that I do think it supports an 8-court club. Yeah. And since there are no courts today in Boca Raton, and Boca Raton is one of the most important tennis communities in the US, and since we're only aiming for a 50% occupation in a stabilized year, when I put myself these questions, I believe that the space is there, you know, because I think if you need to fill in 4 or 5 courts in a tennis community like Boca Raton, with high purchasing power, you know, and people have, you know, some extra time because either are self-employed or retirees or whatever. Yeah. I do think there's a space for that. Now, if you ask me the question the other way around, Rosa, if you ask me, do you think there's space for 100 courts in Boca Raton today? I will probably have to answer
not yet.
I would have to answer probably not yet, you know. And this is how we are trying to figure out what this white space, same for Palm Beach, you know, which is, that's why even though we have the vision of being one of the leading brands in paddle in the US, we want to be super focused in Florida. And I think we want to do that, first of all, because we think we have to have a regional leadership before we jump into a national leadership, but also because I think we have the right demographics in Florida. When you see you have a huge Latin population, you have a huge touristic floating population. A lot of people spending 2, 3, 4 months a year here who love paddle. You have a very strong tennis communities, and you have the outdoors, you know, lifestyle. So when I put all those together, I think it's very difficult to find this in other states, you know.
And it's trending.
And it's a place trending.
People are moving here, so
totally.
Real estate is here.
Well, most of Latin America, you know, considers today Miami the capital city of Latin America, no? So there's a lot of moving parts.
Yeah, but we're putting them together. So
we're trying to put them together. I think we have in Pádel X, we have a great team, great partners. We're bringing different backgrounds in real estate, in hospitality, and so on. And so I think we're trying to figure out this space. You know, I think there's a lot of space for growth in Florida. That's certain, and that's what we're going to concentrate in the short run. And as soon as we find the right partner in the right state, we're going to jump into that opportunity too. Yeah,
okay. I'm sure they're going to call you. You will need to be doing that.
Well, some people have been calling already, to be honest.
Good. That's a good sign. And as I'm talking to you, I'm seeing that you're a person that really like tech and data. And I had a very special opportunity. Those things that happen just once in your life. And while I was living in California, in San Francisco, there was a fund called Peer, BC, with Mark Herseson. She's from Catalonia, and she has a very special partner. They both started that fund, and they had a special summer accelerator program, and every week they had someone that was top Silicon Valley person that went to talk. And she used to call me, hey, do you want to come join us? And I learned a lot there. It was like a garage talk. And one of the persons I had the opportunity to meet, let's say merienda, just 20 people. It was
one-on-one, basically. Almost.
Mostly, well, 1 to 20 or something like that. But to me, it was just a privilege. It was Chamath Palapalaptilla, who is one of the biggest masterminds in Silicon Valley. He created growth in Facebook, and it was the group that bought the Warriors, and they started to win and to get the rings. So their motto was strength in numbers. and they were obsessed with putting Silicon Valley also on top of sports. So the 49ers now are doing great. We have the experience with the Warriors, and also like the Giants.
There was this movie, no, Moneyball.
It was like that.
Yeah.
So he told us why Curry was important, why they had the player, like each role and the data there. I'm having this situation with you, seeing how you are like scrapping and digging deep into the data.
Yeah,
so
we're doing that.
We're
doing that for real estate, and we're also doing now with driving into our performance numbers for the club. And I think what makes hospitality, which is basically my main background, challenging, is very quantity and quality oriented.
Yes.
You have to have the sensibility for design, the sensibility to build teams with the right vibe. But at the other end, you also need to be able to drive numbers, understand numbers, no? And I think it's almost a challenge because you're converting a lifestyle into a business model, no? And the only way you can try to decipher and read between the lines is with data, no? That's also going to be a huge challenge for Pádel. What are the main drivers for our industry? We have detected some of them. I won't be able to disclose them with you yet.
When you do your book,
but we have tried to kind of identify these. What are the key inputs for our model, and those are the ones we're looking for in new locations.
Okay.
But like I told you before, I think there's a huge space still to go. You can read into data all you want, but when you go into Palm Beach or you go to Boca Raton where there's not a single paddle court, if we're talking about the first 5, 10, 15 or 20 courts, I think there's going to be no problem to fill up those courts, Once the paddle industry evolves, you will have to see where the balance lies for each one of these markets, But I think it's probably too early today to say or try to understand or try to guess where the final number for the industry is going to be. People are saying there's going to be 20, 30, 40,000 courts. Who knows? Yeah. Who knows? I think trying to understand where the paddle business is going to be in the next 5 years is very difficult. we know what we want to do in the very short run today.
Yeah. So you have to think both, like next month, next year, and then 10 years time or 2 3 years time.
And adding value, Rosa, because I think when we started the interview, I was telling you that when we were facing the challenge of coming to the USA, we put a lot of effort in saying we have to have a real value proposition. It has to be real. When we're talking about technology, what are we talking about? We're talking about application. We're talking about video technology. For example, I come from golf. Video technology has been in golf for the last 35 years. It's unheard of you take a class without video technology in golf at any level, pro level or amateur or whatever, In Pádel, for example, it hasn't penetrated. And it's something we're bringing in Pádel X. We have 4 premium courts with video technology that has 2 purposes. One is obviously social media. You see yourself, you tap the best play, then you QR and you send it for social media or your friends, whoever you put, and you WhatsApp chat. And second, also for learning the game. If you want to evangelize with Pádel in the US, you need to teach. And I think with the leadership of Nali Grinda and our paddle team, we put a lot of thought also into the academy. How are we going to teach? How do we bring the different levels? How do we track with every one of our students? What classes have they taken in the past? What level are they at? How do we make it entertaining and fun so they see an actual method, and every time they come, they make a different lesson and they have a new challenge. So all I'm saying is I see a lot of little opportunities you see out there that if you collect them as a brand, as an operator, that constructs your value proposition at the end of the day. And we try to do that, with Lacoste, with Mejor Set, the courts we brought are the top level courts from the Premier Circuit, the video technology, the hospitality. We're trying to bring all this together, We're super proud of the sustainability also, pioneering recycling, I think, is key for the future also.
Yeah, no one has thought about that, like the balls and what happens with everything, but it's like, okay, I'm wasting a lot of things. So next weekend, or just, tomorrow, they're going to be on air later, but there's a tournament, which is special too, right? Like it's kind of a social tournament, a festival, but on top of that, it has a purpose. So that's very Pádel X, right? That style.
No, we love that. And obviously, we have the Big Hit Paddle tournament tomorrow, which is a Bye Bye Plastic, sponsored. And obviously, it has a purpose-driven. thing. We really like that project when they came across to us. What we're seeing with the Paddle Club in only 6 weeks of operation is the clubs at the end of the day, they're going to become an event place. Lots of brands have approached us today because they want to do corporate outings, or they want to do private outings, or they even want to do a birthday party, but they want to do it around a healthy lifestyle, a fine environment, So I think that obviously building a club calendar is building an event calendar at the end of the day. And regarding purpose, just to finish that, we also want to have a huge impact in our community. We're going to work with local schools and the Laureus Foundation, which is worldwide, because we also want to rescue, like I was telling you before, the values of sports. I think this is obviously a for-profit business, but all of us coming from different sports background, we want to kind of rescue that philosophy. What we felt as a kid, just playing with the ball alone in the court, or on the golf course or whatever, That's what the real value of sport, that's what gets you hooked. That's the real spirit behind the game at the end of the day, So maybe the challenge is putting everything together.
No, but I think you're working on that and doing it very well. And one thing that I really like is what you were saying about community, right? Because when I think about sometimes the apps and all that, I still feel that here clubs don't interact with some other clubs somehow, like they want to own the players. And the players, I think so far, they play everywhere. They don't have the idea of belonging. You have a membership model too. Like you're not pushing it like you can do pay to play if you like, but also the membership. How are you building the community, and how important is?
No, for us it's key because we're in here for the long run. So since we started operating, and before we started operating, we've always tried to have the best relationship with other clubs, and try to nurture a collaboration spirit more than a competition spirit. I think it has been difficult for some, because obviously they were used to operating by themselves with no competition. And I think competition is going to bring a lot of benefits for the community and for the paddle players. Today, for example, the pricing model is not factoring whether a club is better or worse. Basically, all operators are pricing the same. It doesn't make much sense. You should price location, you should price experience. That's not happening today, no? I do think that as paddle professionalizes, paddle operators are going to understand that through collaboration and not competition, they're going to be better off at the end of the day, no? And I think for paddle players, or for the paddle player community, that's going to bring a benefit. Because I'm surprised. My daughter is studying in EA University in Madrid. I went to see some of the best paddle clubs in Madrid. Madrid is the capital city of the world, I would say, in terms of paddle. I was surprised with the lack of energy, passion, innovation. It's like they were doing the same stuff all over again, And I think, thinking of, as a U.S. paddle operator, and with my fellow colleagues who have other clubs here in the U.S., I think we have a great opportunity of trying to, colonize this white space that paddle is today in the U.S. and bring in real value. Because maybe, I think the U.S. has been one of the last to jump in this train. I think the paddle revolution is here to stay in the U.S. for sure. Because I think the dynamic, you talk the social dynamic of the sport is gonna
everything puts everything
it
together.
fits very well with the American mentality. So I think the paddle revolution is here to stay, and I think that even though paddle has been one of the latest sports to enter the U.S., probably the most innovation that's going to happen in the paddle industry is going to happen in the U.S. And I'm hoping that me with my team and our partners were able to lead in some way the paddle revolution, and that's what's really exciting to somebody creative.
No, it's true, and I think you're working towards that goal. Also, as you were saying, that I think what makes you unique somehow is also your past experience with Utopia. Right? People that come from paddle, maybe they've been all their life just into paddle, having different inputs for different backgrounds and spaces makes you different also to have that vision plus knowledge vision. So I think it's something, now that I'm talking to you, it start to make sense somehow.
No, and it's exciting. I mean, who knows what the Pádel X concept is going to be in 3 more years. This is going to be evolving. We're going to see what generates more traction in our paddle community, what innovations are really valued, and people see a real value behind them, and which ones not. For example, you were talking about the memberships before, no? And I'm not a believer in membership models for clubs.
Okay.
In racket sports, because I think it's super difficult to match the desires, the time slots, the reservation grid with a right to play. It's my short experience in racket sports and what I've studied amongst that, it's very difficult to match. That's my humble opinion. No? That's why we went with a mixed, a mixed proposition where the most engaged players, they can pay a membership, whether it's annual or monthly. But we're trying to offer things that they price the most. Yeah. What does the paddle player, the real paddle player who's engaged, what does he value the most? He values playing time. He values being able to play with his friends at a determined day at a set hour, So, for example, we give them a larger window to play in that sense. We give them more simultaneous reservations. We give them discounts maybe on the premium courts or in the academy so they can improve their games. We're trying to put the value of the membership more on the engagement than the economics of the membership. Yes. We don't want our members to have a calculator and saying, whether this makes economic sense or not. I think when you want to become a member, it's more about the engagement with the club than the economics behind the decision. If not, many private clubs or golf clubs that charge $250,000 wouldn't be able to do that if that engagement or that identity wasn't there. No?
Yeah, the idea of belonging.
The idea of belonging. I love that phrase, Rosa.
No, I love it. My last question is related to the future, because you've touched a lot of points that I'm really interested in. One is the learning curve. Like, I feel like if Americans don't improve, the offer of things to do here is so huge that they can jump into some other things. So it's important to keep them engaged and learning and improving their game, because by default here people are competitive. So do you have that solved? My question is, where do you see this in 2 years' time? What's your vision for in some years? Maybe you want to go further than the US. I don't know.
No, for me, today, Pádel X, a real focus is on the US. We have a lot of work ahead of us here in the US. No, I think there's going to be many different developments in the paddle ecosystem. And I think what this development of bringing the industry, like I was telling you, maybe the US is the last one to jump in the train, but it's going to be the first one to innovate. No, and I think we were talking before the interview in your office a little bit, and I think it's going to force many different operators within the paddle industry. For example, retail, people who have e-commerce. They're going to have to change the way they engage if they want to attack a market like the American market. Maybe that winning formula that you had in Spain or Italy or France was working very nicely there for your academy or for apparel or for merchandise or for whatever. But maybe it's not going to work the same way here. Maybe selling courts needs a different business model to attack the American market than the one you were using abroad, So I think the challenge for everybody like myself, who have been living in Miami since August 2023 only. So I think the challenge for all of us trying to figure this out is that we're going to have to be super reactive, super humble and open to learning how to work in the American environment and seeing how that brings opportunity to change your business model and put more power behind your business model, And I think that's what I see. For example, if you talk about academies, if you talk with the top 10 or 15 academies in the world today, they don't have contents in English. And many of them are saying, we want to attack the American market. And my first question to them was, do you have English content or not? Something as basic as that, So I think there's going to be different challenges for different type of operators. But at the end of the day, my conclusion and the answer to your question is that I think your business book or your rule book that you were using abroad is probably going to have to change if you want to be successful in America. And hopefully the learnings we are making will be good enough for us.
I think that once you have the playbook, you can start going out of Florida, right? Like having the Miami kind of flagship, then Boca, Palm Beach, 3 different styles, 3 different clubs. Once you do, 20, or maybe just with 10, you can have like different models and blueprints and styles in order to productize it somehow, right?
Totally. Well, we were born day one with that. We have standardized processes like we were a franchise. Even though we're not going to franchise, most probably, we're going to go with a mixed model where we have partners and we operate and we're also equity partners. But that's different. That's still a long way to go. But those are the challenges I see, I think, and those are the challenges we face as Pádel X. It's like I'm not talking about other operators.
Business. No,
we're talking about the dilemmas we face when we meet as a team and we say, okay, how are we going to attack this? How are we going to solve this? What value propositions do we think our clients are going to value most or not? And that's going to be a learning curve.
Yeah, but that's very startup style, right?
Yeah,
like
no,
you
totally.
gather data and pivot and pivot and pivot until you get there. So talking to you, I have the feeling that it's like you're launching a rocket while you're still building the rocket, right? Like, let's put this, like the door. Oh no, we need this, we need that.
Yeah.
But so far it's working because we are seeing it that is full, and you haven't done like a big party to open. No. Not advertising, no. So it's more like the demand. People wanted that.
And I believe when you're launching something, especially in hospitality, which is different to the technology dynamics, it has to have some sort of organic component. Okay. Because if you're learning through the process, you need time to absorb. And for example, last week we had a Red Paddle event. We had 160 players. It's the largest paddle event that's been happened here in the US. That was a huge challenge for the team. When we met next Monday, we were saying, okay, what did we learn this past weekend?
Okay.
So that's a mindset. Okay, it's like, okay, guys, we just opened. We went through this tournament. We had a huge feedback. We had a huge, player base. But what did we learn?
Yeah.
What did we do right? What did we do wrong? How do we perform? How do we carry that into the next event? And that's an ongoing demand. When you're in hospitality, you're only as good as your last service. You can't afford to live off your reputation,
That's true.
And so it's a huge challenge, but I think if you leave that with passion, it fits you with energy, at the end of the day.
Yeah, you did like an autopsy, right? Like opening but you know what? I was one of the players, like lower level of them. We lost the final.
You play, you're quite good.
Nah, we lost the final. But the point is, I felt that from Friday to Sunday, you learn things. Like the first day we didn't have this. Okay, next day is fixed. So the improvement, you can see it from one day to next day, and that's also like reading the room, understanding and paying attention to detail. So that attached to hospitality, right? Yeah. Like if you are doing a tournament, okay, they have the ball, they have the result, they have the lighting. Okay, go and play. So it was kind of different, and I think everybody was.
This is exciting. This is exciting, and I really think that the paddle industry in the US is going to have a huge voice worldwide, because I think the challenges in this country are going to force paddle operators to really push ahead. That's what I believe. And just to finish off, and thank you again, Rosa, for this.
Of course, my pleasure.
The feeling I have is when I speak with big funds in Europe, especially who are already in the paddle industry, they are waiting for us to grow the industry, to come into the market. But they need, entrepreneurs or startups or crazy dreamers like us to push forward and build clubs so we reach a critical mass where the funds are able to come into this country.
To attract that kind of money, that amount,
exactly.
They need to see the movement.
Exactly. So I've met with many of them, and they say, JP, how they call me in America, Juan Pablo back home. They say, we're waiting for you to grow this industry along with other operators, obviously, for us to come into it. So this is
you can feel that pressure to a responsibility in a good way.
But it's a huge opportunity at the end of the day. So
yeah, that's exciting.
Yeah.
They're looking at you. No, thank you. Thanks a lot. And
no,
congratulations
thank
for
you.
what you've done so far.
Thank you very much.
And see you in the court, right?
Yes. Thank you very much.
Everybody.
Ciao.